Welcome back to the Fear and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies, and just a little bit of beer.
So kill the lights, grab a cold one, and join us as we dive into this mad world we love.
I'm Nick.
I'm Seamus.
And I'm Jamie.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You miss me.
Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
And as a reminder to all listening, if you want to help us to continue growing as a podcast, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on whichever streaming platform you use.
To stay up to date with us and all of our episodes, be sure to follow all of our socials. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Fear and Beer Pod.
Feel free to reach out to us. We love to interact with you all.
It's the middle of July, and we have one house remaining unannounced. Crazy. We're getting close.
Yeah, we're on the final stretch.
We are just about there, but I hope you are all ready to tiptoe through the queue line because Insidious is back. We are talking Insidious tonight. We are also talking multi-night tickets, which there's, I think, more to talk about in the ticket world versus the Insidious world, because we've talked about Insidious kind of for a little while. Since March, it's sort of been rumored. Tickets, however, are a different story. There's a lot to dive into, a lot of numbers, and we'll get into that in due time. But we're rocking old school tonight. Me and Seamus. Jamie had a long day at work, and I don't blame her. If I was stuck there as long as she was today, I would not have wanted to record as well. So we're rocking it old school. So deal with it. As far as drinks, let's get into some drinks so we can dive headfirst into this announcement stuff. I forgot that I did squirrel away this one beer. I completely forgot about it. Very cool, like comic book style looking. It looks it reminds me of the Tribute Store, but it's called All Hallows Treat, because we were in for a treat today, that's for sure. This is from Brewery Ommegang. It's a regional Ommegang. It's from Cooperstown. This is a 7.6 ABV Imperial Double Pastry Stout.
That sounds phenomenal.
Yep. It is, the details of it, it says, sweet and spooky like the perfect Halloween night. All Hallows Treats rekindles your favorite childhood holiday memories. Childhood. I'm a manhood holidays.
What's childhood? I forget what childhood is
Growing
like.
up holiday memories. Aromas and flavors of dark chocolate, creamy peanut butter, and a soft vanilla finish swirl with a smooth body and a medium mouthful. It's the perfect throwback that brings you to your first bite of chocolate peanut butter cup. So if you're just listening and you're curious about the can art, head over to our YouTube page. I know I need to get better at taking pictures of these cans because I never do, but I am showing it off on the YouTube video right now. It looks very, very cool. It caught my eye. Like I said, it's very Halloween-y, very comic book inspired. It's orange. It's got, zombie arms coming out of a cemetery holding beer. You got crosses, you got ghosts, you got bats, you got ghoulies, you got a little bit of everything. So I'm going to crack this thing open. I'm going to pour it out, and we're going to see what we're working with for tonight. It looks, well, it's hard. Now that I film kind of in the dark with these lights, it's pretty hard to tell you exactly what it looks like because everything just sort of looks dark for me at this point. But it definitely has that imperial peanut butter style scent to it. But I get a lot of the booze on the nose too, which is, I do enjoy that on the stouts because I like to earn it, as they say. That is good. More peanut butter than chocolate. Not as boozy as I thought based off of the smell. I thought it was going to be a lot.
You would think with the 7% that it would be.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot more bite to it, but it's actually very smooth, which I guess makes sense with like chocolate and vanilla and peanut butter being in there. Kind of the sweetness sort of masks that booziness, but no, I like it. Again, these Imperials, these are great little dessert beers. These aren't pounder beers. You're not going to take a 6-pack of these and start or maybe you will. Maybe you're crazy. But I like it. What are you working with any tonight? I know it's a
I am
late night.
currently not drinking anything tonight,
Mhm.
so
I know it's a late night. I'll put this down for the two of us. So, where to start? Let's start with what sort of came out first, because whenever tickets go on sale, they hit the app at a ridiculous time of day. I don't know what time. I'm guessing around 5 a.m. because when I woke up at like 7:30, people were already posting about it, and had posted about it for about the last hour or so. So they go on ridiculous times. They didn't make the announcement until it was paired up with the Insidious announcement, but these passes were available on the app and a lot earlier than it was announced. So they were out there. So we knew something was coming today for sure. So let's just run down the ticket options and the ticket prices, because they did increase as expected, but honestly, not too bad other than the express passes, because the express passes, it's a premium. It's going to cost a premium. And with people purchasing them like they have been in the last couple of years, they're going to continue to increase at this rate because they clearly know that they can charge that and sell. So we'll just start with the Rush of Fear pass. That is your September only. That ticket price is $179.99. That increased 0%. That was the same price as it was last
the price
year.
stayed the same.
Yep. So, last year they increased the Rush of Fear by 38%. So, if you want to view it at 16.5 or 17% a year, you can do so, but it didn't go up from last year. The Rush of Fear with Express, however, it went up 15%. If you want to do the September only dates with Express, that's going to cost you $609.99. Now, I don't have the amount of days in front of me, but we'll just run off prices and what they typically are.
Was it? Did you say that was the Rush of Fear?
That was the Rush of Fear. So $609.99.
Does it include August or is it just September?
That is, I believe it's that first weekend.
The first weekend through September.
Yeah. So it's because I think the 31st. I should know this stuff off the top of my head. Oh, the 30th is that Friday. I believe it is.
Yeah. That
August 30th is that Friday. So yeah, it should include that one as well. So that's Rush of Fear. We don't really do Rush of Fear. I can't do Rush of Fear. I just can't. I'd be too jealous. I can't go October without having Horror Nights. Knowing it's happening, I can't do it.
I mean, it's an option for those who
do like 3 days.
Want to spend 300.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing if you're an out of towner and you plan your trip for September, it beats buying, 2 or 3 single days.
Correct. Right. So if you're coming in for a weekend or for a week and you don't want to spend, per night, you just buy the Rush of Fear if you're coming in September, and that covers you.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, if you just want to ballpark it at $100 a night,
right,
you're saving money just by buying the Rush of Fear for 2 nights.
Yeah. And even with Express, to be honest with you, like for me, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit more in detail, but I think like the Rush of Fear with the Express is probably the only one that I think Express is worth it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because that one too clearly is like, I know some locals get it because, maybe come October, they're ready to sort of pivot and try some other things. You have a lot of you have Hollow Scream in Tampa and Orlando.
Right.
You have Sir Henry's, I get not wanting to pigeonhole yourself to one haunt event. And I totally get it. For me, I can't. I just love it. So let's get into the Frequent Fear. So the Frequent Fear is your Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday ticket. This year, it went up 4%. So it is now $239.99 as opposed to $229.99. So $10. Not really.
You're not breaking the bank.
Like that's $10 is nothing to scoff. That's nothing. It's compared to how much money you're putting into this thing. That's such a small amount. The amount of days you get with the Frequent Fear. It's the worth it one. Frequent Fear with Express, however, went up 20%. It is now $729.99, which is more than what the Frequent Fear Plus with Express cost last year.
Yeah.
So the express passes are a premium, and we'll discuss express passes not at length, but we'll talk about them a little bit more once we finish off this list of the numbers. Your frequent fear plus pass this year is $289.99. Last year it was $269.99. So just a small jump, 7%, $20. It went up. Last year the increase was 23%. So we cut that down by a third essentially, because they're definitely starting to target the express versus the multi-day tickets when it comes to increases, it seems, this year. So that with frequent fear plus with express, we're talking $839.99. That is a 20% spike. Last year was $699.99. This year $839.99. So $140 just about.
Yeah.
That is, and last year it jumped $100. So
Yeah,
in the
that's
last
a big
2
increase.
years, it's from 2022 to 2024, it's gone up $240.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I talk about it on Twitter and Instagram, and I talked about it last year, and I kind of tricked myself into this year as well, being like, you know what? This will be the year. I'm gonna splurge. I'm gonna treat myself. I'm gonna get express. I've been saving some money, on the side. I'm gonna get it. And then when it comes out, I see the price. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I can't.
Yeah.
I cannot justify. If you have the means, by all means. But it's not to say I couldn't afford it. Could I put it on a credit card and deal with it? Yeah. Could I set up a payment plan and pay 4 payments over the next 4 months or 2 months? Yeah, I'm sure I could. But do I really want to strap myself that much and stress myself out that much more just to have the express? It's hard to justify that. And as often as we go, is it an absolute necessity? No, we go like 20 times. If it's too busy, we don't do the line. If we can stay late, we stay late. If we can do stay and scream, we do stay and scream. There's ways around having express. But again, this will be a couple of different discussion points after the fact, but we'll talk about express in a little bit. The ultimate fear pass, that is sitting at a $399.99. So for $400, you can go. Oh, I should have been saying this all along, but the frequent fear is, I think I said earlier, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. Frequent fear plus is your Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. But it does include your opening Saturday and your closing Saturday. So that's why I lean towards that one. Whereas the ultimate fear, it's every day. Don't worry about it. Saturdays are not blocked off. But for me, Saturdays, I just don't really care to go anyways. It seemed to slow down a little bit last year. I feel like maybe the trends were shifting where Saturdays weren't as crazy because everyone saw they were so crazy. So they started to kind of go towards other days. But regardless,
Saturday's still the busiest day of the season. So.
And it's, the high school kids, that's their weekend. So I'm sure some locals let their kids go out on, school nights and stuff like that. But for the most part, a lot of them will be lumped in on Saturdays. So I just would rather not.
I compare it to for those that are our age or maybe older, you'd go to the mall on a weekend and how the mall was just full of high school kids because that's where everybody hung out.
That's where we went.
Kind of like that, where Friday and Saturday nights are the nights where all of the kids are there. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're someone that doesn't like crowds, then Saturday is obviously not a night I would go because it's just super crowded. Or I guess if you don't like kids, if you're one of those weirdos, but if they put you off that bad, don't go on a Saturday.
Yeah, it's just for me unnecessary since I know I'm going to be going twice a week anyways, if not 3 times a week.
Yeah, and I think for most locals, I don't know how many locals get the ultimate. I mean, I'm sure there are that do, but I have to imagine that the volume for that particular pass is super lowish compared to everything else.
I've seen a lot of people getting it, and I don't know if it's a necessity or they're viewing it as a badge of honor.
Maybe, but part of it could also be part of it could be the convenience of it. You can literally go any night that it's open, so you can just be like, I'm gonna go to Horn Nights tonight. Yeah. Whereas with the other ones, you do kind of lose some of the days. Obviously, with the Frequent Fair Plus, you get pretty much everything but those Saturdays, which, again, for you and I don't think it's a huge deal. But if it's someone that like can't really go, if you
work a Monday through Friday,
you're right. If they work a Monday to 5 or a 9 to 5 or during the week, or if you work super early, a lot of people get up and do construction jobs and other types of jobs where you got to be up like really, really early. Maybe they can't go out on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night.
Yeah,
So I get why I get why it's useful, because they don't. The shitty part about it is they don't really give you an option for like weekends only, or
they need to add a different tier, like an extra tier, or sub tier, or a multi-day package or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and also it's, I guess, the ultimate is good if you have friends like me that are like constantly like, oh yeah, I want to do Horror Nights, I want to come down and do Horror Nights. When these passes drop, I have no idea if or when they're gonna come.
Yeah, when that's gonna happen.
My luck, they'll be like, oh yeah, we're gonna go on this Saturday. It's like, okay, well, I'm not, so have fun. You ready for the price on this one? The ultimate frequent fear with Express. We have finally hit the over 1,000 mark before tax. It is $1,069.99,
and that's with the Express Pass. Just so everybody knows,
that's the ultimate frequent fear with Express. That's a 16% up.
It's a lot of money.
That is a lot.
It's a huge amount.
It's $1,100 after tax.
After tax, yeah.
I mean, last year it was $919 before taxes. This year $1,069.
Yeah, so it broke the millennium mark.
Yeah, it's a lot. Again, like I said, if you can afford that, by all means. I wouldn't have looked at. I don't look at Ultimate anyways for the reasons we just discussed. I don't. As long as I get the first and the last Saturdays, that's more than enough for me. Being that I tend to like to go during the weekdays and I can work on Saturdays or something like that to make up for the fact that I'm not working on the weekdays. But yeah, that's a lot. So let's get into this Express conversation real quick. So as of 3:00 today, through the app and through the website, the Express passes, the ultimate frequent fear with Express, the frequent fear plus with Express, and then after the fact, frequent fear, the regular with Express, are currently unavailable. If you went to the website or the app, you could select it, get to the next portion, and then go to select your start date, which they're continuing this year.
And they blocked it out.
And everything was blocked out. Now, the only response that Universal has said, let's see if I can just pull it up real quick, but their wording was that it is currently unavailable. So they say, hello, due to demand, Halloween Horror Nights Ultimate Frequent Fear Pass with Express, Frequent Fear Plus with Express, and Frequent Fear with Express are currently sold out. So for me, that means as of right now, they're sold out. That doesn't mean they're sold out for the season. I believe they're opening up more. They're not going to say, take your $1,200 and go home.
No, they definitely, they have to hold some of it because usually when you get there are people at booths like selling you the upgrade. So like they need to make sure that there's enough space to do that. But at the same time, I think from what I've heard is that there were complaints about how long the waits some of the nights for Express was. So I don't know if part of this is in conjunction with raising the prices on them. Is this partially to kind of control how many people can get Express?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think you're right.
The problem with the Express stuff, and especially even now with like not Horror Nights related, but like Disney with the paid Genie Plus thing or whatever it's called, where you get the fast passes, but now you have to pay for it. Yep. The problem that you run into, or what they find themselves running into, is that they have to charge enough to make it exclusive, but they have to make sure that it's not charged so little that everybody gets it. So you're kind of like stuck in this like middle ground, like where is that right price point? Mm-hmm. And then mix that with controlling the number of tickets that they sell specifically for Express. So it's kind of like rock and a hard place situation for them. So they have to have the prices where they're at. But at what point does it get almost too expensive and nobody buys it?
Yeah. I'm curious. It's like you said, rock and a hard place. It's a true catch-22 because you have the people that purchase it for a premium and you expect like express, all right, I'm going to go right through.
Right.
So many people that you're not going right through. So how do you make less people? Okay, well, you just charge more. Okay, well, now those people are upset that, maybe that's out of your budget now. Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine that it's out of your budget, but that's why it's a premium. You pay to be able to scoot right through, and if you can't go right through, then you're either mad that you paid extra and it's not working, or
Right.
you're mad that you can no longer do that for that price.
And unfortunately, too, especially in the busier nights, generally, the regular line is so long that's gonna affect the express wait a little bit too, just because you can't like hold up that line for 15 minutes at a time to let all the express people in.
Yeah.
So you do as many express as you can, and then you got to stop that line, then let a bunch from the regular line. So you're going to end up waiting on those nights anyways. Obviously not as long as you would if you were in the regular line, but we've kind of seen years past that generally maybe 1 or 2 houses a year express really does make sense. But for the other 8, you end up waiting the same time.
Yeah.
In a lot of situations, but I don't know. It's expensive. I have a hard time justifying an extra $400 or $500, $600 on top of what I'm paying for my ticket. I mean, that ultimate pass is $400 for the pass, and you're telling me I need another 600 plus just to add express to it. And I get that it's like every night you have express, but that's a lot to chew on, I guess, if you're really kind of deciding. Even for our pass, the plus pass, which is it's $280, so $300 with tax, plus another $500 on top of that if you wanted to do express.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money.
It is, and I like to have it, of course, but I can just go without sleep for 2 months and put that into my beer budget.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people get it though, because it seems like the last couple of years the express line has been pretty busy.
Yeah.
So I mean, they definitely do numbers on it. So whatever they're charging, it's not keeping people from buying it. Obviously, it's keeping a lot of people from buying it, but not like there's still a number of people that get it. Plus, I mean, again, like we said before, like you have to expect that every single night there's going to be people that are showing up for like a one night thing, and they're paying for the express at the time. So then they add that, which increases the numbers of people who have it.
Which is a higher percentage versus their single day versus adding it to their multi-night. So they want to be able to sell those one-offs more than they need to sell those attached to frequent fear passes. So it makes sense that they want to save space for those single nighters. But I'm curious what their number was. I'm curious. I mean, this is crazy. It is crazy that come 3:00 in the afternoon, they said, shut it off. Enough's enough. I'm curious what that number was on their inside to say, this is
right. And
not too much, but we hit our threshold for today. I mean,
they haven't said anything, and they could very much be, hey, our system went down or something happened and we have to stop this for the moment until we can fix whatever the problem is and then let people buy them again. I have a feeling that I wonder if obviously they have security in a lot of these websites, but how many people every year try to manipulate their system so they can maybe like add on an add-on or whatever to their ticket and not pay for it. And I don't know if maybe there was something like that happened, because it is weird that it's the first time you've ever heard of it selling out in the first day, right?
I think it's the first time ever any of these have quote unquote sold out ever, period.
Right. So I have a funny feeling that there's something more to it than just, hey, we sold too many tickets with Express.
Yeah. So I hope that, obviously I hope they open this up again, because not that I'm going to get it, I don't think, but if they don't, there's a lot of people that didn't get it. So now that Express is going to be really worth it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That just means it's that many people getting Express, but
Well, it's like, well, if they, and again, hypothetical, but I'm willing to bet this is not going to happen. If they are sold out, done, this is it, you cannot get it, then the express is going to be like a 10-minute wait, because that many people couldn't have purchased it on the first day by the middle of the afternoon. So then we're talking like crazy standby waits with very, very minimal express. Just because I've seen a lot of people saying they didn't get their tickets. A lot of people wait. What's say Thursday? I mean, I don't know how many people get paid on a Thursday, but most people will wait until they get paid and then be like, okay,
Right.
paydays. I get paid next week. If I didn't have like credit cards and stuff like that, if I was like living by that paycheck or whatever, and I said, okay, well, I'll get it, but I got to wait till next week to get it for my paycheck. I'm pretty much told to shit in my hat.
It does kind of suck for those that didn't or couldn't just stop what they were doing and get the pass today.
Yeah.
Especially if they intended to get express.
Anything with express, yeah.
But
so I'm curious what the number is, but I think that's a very out of pocket scenario. I think I find it almost impossible to comprehend the fact that they would tell people, no, we don't want your $1,200. I've never seen a big corporation like this say no to money to benefit your experience. Like,
right.
They're like, no, we don't give a shit about your experience.
That's why I think there's something more to it than just, hey, we sold out.
Yeah, no, maybe they just, like you said, maybe something happened on the back end and like, homeboy that's like the coder for the site accidentally set a limit for 100 or something, and then it just, canceled out and just like, they're like, shit, what does this mean?
Right.
So time will tell. I'm expecting them to release more tickets. I wouldn't even be surprised if I woke up tomorrow and everything was kind of fixed up and debugged or whatever. So interesting though, because it is the first time they've actually like quote unquote sold out of a multi-night pass, supposedly.
Right.
But any other thoughts on Express, or we'll move along to the house announcement that we've.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would end on is that if you are considering Express, obviously I'm not going to tell you not to get it, but it really kind of comes down to how many days you're going to be there and what your plans are. So if you're coming in for like a weekend stay or a week stay, or even just for like a day or two, and you plan on doing Horror Nights, just that's your plan, you can probably get away without Express. And the reason I say that is because whether or not you plan on going to the theme park during the day, you can get a Stay and Scream pass. So if your whole plan is I'm coming in for 3 days, we're doing Horror Nights every day, that's all we're doing, we're not doing anything else, we're not going to Disney World, we're not doing anything else around Orlando. If that's your plan, if you Stay and Scream until almost close or basically close, you can get every house done in 2 days, definitely 3.
Oh, 100%.
So you wouldn't need Express in that situation. The only time I would say you'd need Express is if you're coming in literally for like a day or two to do Horror Nights, or maybe you're doing a week stay, but you're only doing Horror Nights like 1 or 2 days that week and you can't stay all night long. Then Express makes sense, but I wouldn't waste your money if you plan on doing literally just Horror Nights, even if it is just a weekend, because you can get everything done.
Yeah, I mean, from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m., I could say I usually get done 5 houses. 5 to 6 if I'm, really pushing it. But as long as you hit them at the right times, you can, if you find that little magic loop, whatever it is, this year might be different. But
let's just put it to Nick. Nick is the king of walking on to like The Last of Us at like 1:30 in the morning. So
1:30, I'll push that bitch to 1:59. I'm like, all right,
exactly.
I'll be running out of Oddfellows.
And the thing is too, is people think that like everything, it's like a hard stop at 2. Like they're gonna get through everybody in line even after 2:00. So like if you're like the last 10 people in line and it's 2:05, they're gonna let you go through, and then they'll shut it off because they shut off the queues at the beginning at 2:00. So if you're in line in queue at 2 and they haven't turned you away, then you're fine. So again, if that's what you're planning on doing, if you plan on going full bore at like 4:00, getting there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, getting in line for something early, and then just do everything else. What I would suggest, to be honest with you, and Nick can back me up on this, is that when you get there for Stay and Scream, get in line for like what you think is going to be the busiest house, or what people have been saying is the busiest house. Get that done early, And then by like 10, 11 o'clock at night, all of the other houses generally are super like quick waits, walk-ons, like maybe 25, 35 minutes. It's rare that even on a Saturday that beyond like 11 o'clock, things are still 2-hour waits.
Yeah, it's even like so with the Stay and Scream. What's cool is those big hot ticket items like last year's Stranger Things. They'll open those lines at like 5:15, 5:20,
Right.
which is 40 minutes before the park even opens. So even if you wait 45 minutes for that house, you're starting opening time with the biggest house done, which at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock is going to be a 2-hour wait. So
Right.
you could bang out a lot, bang, bang, bang. That's like, I'm sure we'll talk about it on another episode during our, our week, 1 week until HHN Podathon. Maybe we'll do like another sort of how-to guide of like our plan of attack. But, the majority of that middle chunk of the night is strictly kind of devoted to houses around 40 minutes or less, a bunch of food and some beer. We hit the ground running hard with like 3 to 4 houses. Then it starts to pick up. We kind of dump out of that and go check out some other low key stuff that we don't need to wait. And then towards the end, once 10:30 hits, I kind of ramp back up and bang, 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 hit 4, 5, 6 houses to close it out. And I've done a night where I did like 12 or 13 house runs with no express on just an average night that I stayed open to close. I was off the next day. I had plenty of time and I wasn't stretched too thin. So it can definitely be done. And I'm glad you brought up the Stay and Scream because they do have the Scream early ticket available again this year. It did increase. Now this is a bigger increase. I forget what it was last year. I think it was like $30 or something. This year it's $55 before tax.
That's a big jump.
So if you're not a Universal Pass holder, you will need to purchase the Scream early ticket to get into Stay and Scream.
Right. And this is per night too, right? It's not 55
Correct.
on the whole stay. So whatever night you're coming, you pay the 100, whatever it is for the ticket, plus 55 for that.
Yep. So I think their idea with this is maybe pushing people to get annuals because if you're a resident and you don't have an annual, I would suggest it because it includes the parking as well as that Scream early.
I also wonder if it kind of forces people to almost be like, psychologically, maybe I'll just get a ticket to the park and go to the park for the day. And it kind of forces people to do that. And that's why they want you to do that. But
this whole thing is about pushing other sales. Like it really is.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So interesting. All right. So let's get to the announcement. We have Insidious the Further. We kind of were talking about this back in March. We've talked through it. Insidious the Further. So we have the actual tagline. We have the key art, and they dropped another trailer. The trailer, just as good as the other stuff. Really, really cinematic. I really enjoyed it. And then the little description of it is, don't get trapped in the Further as terrifying demons try to ensnare you. Enter the red-faced demon's lair behind the red door and try to keep away from Keyface so he can't lock up your spirit. So it does seem like we're getting an overlook of the franchise as a whole because
it's almost like going to be their own take on the Further,
which is cool.
And that's what you're going to do. It's not like, hey, we're trying to follow a specific timeline of the movie.
Yep. I like that because there's a lot in this world. I like that. I mean, the Further is obviously like the coolest part of the movies. That's like the other realm. So I'm glad that it seemingly is going to take place entirely in the Further.
Yeah.
Hence my red lights tonight. If you're watching on YouTube, I had to somewhat theme it. But I do like this. I like this franchise. This is probably my most hyped IP on an unfortunately fairly weaker IP year. I think it's appropriate to say.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. I'm going to rewatch this whole series. I feel like I often go to Insidious 1. I've seen the Red Door, I think just in theaters. And then the other stuff, 2, 3, and then the Key, whatever. Key from Hell. I don't know what it's called. But whatever the Lost Key, I think is the name of one of the other sequels. I think I've only visited a couple times. So I'm excited to revisit that world. I know these are sort of divisive films. People aren't super. I don't know what to say. I think you either like this series,
either like it or you don't.
Yeah, and
There's
I do.
No,
this is like my kind.
Casual Insidious fans.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised by I've seen a fair amount of people say they haven't seen anything in this series, and I mean that surprised me. Are you surprised? I thought this was more mainstream.
I don't think I'm surprised because I don't. It's not like the first thing I go to, and honestly, it's one of those ones that for me, I just forget that it exists until somebody says, "Hey, let's watch the Insidious movie or one of the Insidious sequels," and I don't think about it initially off the top of my head when I think about it, but I I guess I am one of those people that likes it, but like I wouldn't say that I clamor for it every year. You know what I mean? Like there's so many
Yeah,
other things that I watch, but I can appreciate what they were going for, at least with the first movie.
yeah. I feel like this is a fun house to be revisited. I think the last time I believe it was at 25, and that was my first year, so it's kind of nice to be able to revisit to a set, that I saw when I first started this event to where I am now. I don't even really remember the house per se. I went once,
Mm.
however long ago, whatever it's been, 8 years or something like that. But I'm excited, obviously with the red faced lipstick monster guy, like that's the big bad in the series. It's a prominent figure in 1, 2, and the last one. And I'm excited. I really like this move, and this gets me a little bit more hyped up. So with the announcement, any other thoughts on us going to the further? Do you like the fact that it is like seemingly an original
Yeah,
take on an
I would
aspect of
prefer
the
it.
movie?
I would have preferred it this way, where it's more of a, hey, this is our take or amalgamation of all the different things from the series in one house, and that we're focusing specifically on the further. Like if they were doing like the back and forth thing, like I said, trying to follow a timeline from the movie or movie
Sure.
series, it wouldn't have resonated as well with me. But now that like it's gonna be kind of like, hey, forget all the lore, just we're gonna focus on, you know, the red monster guy, lipstick monster, whatever you call him, and like his realm and the further and the ghosts that exist within the further. That I think is exciting. So I wouldn't say it's my most hyped IP, but it's definitely close
Really? Okay.
close up there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's weird because like when we have IPs like A Quiet Place and Insidious, neither of those, Insidious more so. I think I would have been like, okay, yeah,
Insidious
that
more
makes
so.
sense. But they're both interesting picks. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited to check these out. I'm curious to check out A Quiet Place. I think it's going to surprise people, but it is sort of an out of left field pick
Yeah.
to have
It
as an
is.
IP.
It is.
So along the announcement of Insidious, they dropped merch like they typically do, a little preview merch. This shirt's pretty cool. It's the logo that they put with it as the banner, which again leaked a little bit. It's not
Yeah.
a HHN year if they don't leak something. Somebody
Something
must
doesn't
have
leak.
updated. Yeah, somebody updated the merch site before the drop, so the banner had the Insidious merch. So, whoops, swing and a miss. But the shirt is like this really cool side silhouette of the red lipstick monster with the red door in front of him with his sort of like part of his realm in the
Yeah.
background, and it just says Insidious the Further, and it's got this really blue fog style look coming out from underneath the door, and it's got the little Horror Nights 2024 logo on the sleeve. So I usually don't get IP merch. I don't know if I'll necessarily get this as well, but it's probably my favorite piece of IP merch that they've dropped this year so far. It beats the Quiet Place shirt with the just
Yeah,
the lady
they're
doing the
kind of hit or
shush.
miss a lot of times on the IP merch because I think generally part of it's like, hey, you can use
Limited.
our stuff for your merch, but it needs to be this, this, and this. It has to actually look like this. You have to have this person in it, that person in it. So they're kind of like hamstrung by whatever those requirements are.
Yeah.
Because like last year, I know like the Last of Us shirt didn't wow me at all. It was
Yeah.
very like bland. Like I could have bought that on like a PlayStation website or something. And I know it's because like if you're gonna use our property, you need to sell like what our merch would look like, or maybe we're giving you the merch design or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's nice when they actually have something that's a little different. It's a little bit more. It looks like there's a little more thought put into it. But yeah, unfortunately they can't go as wild or crazy as they can with their their own internal stuff.
Yeah. And alongside the shirt, we also got an Insidious the Further scented candle.
Ooh.
I don't know the scent of it. Whatever the Further smells like.
I guess whatever the further smells like.
Which I guess
gonna
you
smell
have
like
to buy
fog
it
juice.
to find out. Yeah, right. You have to buy it and find out. So whatever it is, I hope you like the scent of it. So let's get into another thing that I saw this last week. I know we took a little break. I went on vacation and it was a nice little calming time. I actually planned the vacation accordingly last minute because I wanted to get away, but thankfully I didn't miss an announcement. I planned it perfectly in between announcements because last year I remember we were gone for the original dump in August. I was like, oh shit, we have to scramble, and I recorded an episode up in Acadia National
I
Park
remember that. Yeah.
on my AirPods because we just had to talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's get into something. This was actually pointed out by Theme Park Parker on Twitter. Now we know that the code names have kind of been out there in the public sphere. You can look them up. They're out there. When you click onto the images on the websites, the code names are part of the URL.
Mm.
So we can, from that information, they pointed out the direct correlation of which house is which code name now. So they've kind of cracked that. We don't know the whys behind them exactly, but I think we have a good idea, and I'm pretty sure that this is, I would say this is accurate. I'm good with giving this information out, and I don't think that it's too far fetched. But we'll just go through the locations real quick as to what the image was, what the code name was, and where it lands on the permit. So Soundstage 23A was Flan, and that links us directly to Monstrose. So that's, I believe, where Blood Moon was, because we have 23A, 23B. I just forget which one's A and B. So I'm guessing that's the Blood Moon sign. So we have Monstrose sort of up front as that front house. I like it. Soundstage, I want Monstrose to be this big, wide open, extravagant kind of thing. I want them to have room to work with. I think that's something we've talked about previously, but now that it seems a little bit more concrete, I figured it's we should hit upon it again,
Yeah.
So you're good with that in a soundstage?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
not that it's our decision, but
yeah, I mean, I think
we give them the approval.
Right. No, I think it fits because again, we don't know how big these monsters are going to be. Like I didn't watch anything from LA, so I'm assuming that they need the space. So yeah, I mean, depending on what else is in the sound stages, I'm okay with it for now.
Mm-hmm. So Soundstage 23B was codenamed S'mores. That's Ghostbusters. And we know that's Ghostbusters even more so because on the t-shirts, on the barcode that they scan, it said S'mores.
Oh,
so
that's
there
funny.
We go. So Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and I believe that is where Stranger Things was last year.
Makes sense.
The other side of that soundstage. So Ghostbusters, I know you're not going to put that into a tent. So, and without the parade warehouses this year, if it's big enough, it's getting a stage. That's it. That's really the only location available for it. Soundstage 22, the code name was Cookies, and that is seemingly a quiet place. So that is where the Exorcist Believer was last year.
Okay.
So kind of that big queue line in front of Rip Ride Rocket.
Yep.
So that's usually where a IP of notoriety will go because it gives you that very large queue line. Right. So quiet place, soundstage, the size of those monsters, adds up. Makes sense. Soundstage 24A, that was codenamed Pudding, and I think that is now where Insidious is locked in. I think that's what the code name was for Insidious. Now that is where I believe Dragons was last year. Yep. So on the left side of the tribute store, you had those two pathways. So interesting that all of the IPs are bang, bang, bang right up front.
They usually have to be, right? I mean,
yeah, without the parade warehouses, they definitely don't get to split them off because you're not going to put any of those IPs in the old Sprung tents,
right?
And you're not going to put them in Fast and Furious. Now, without seeing them, we can't really say how big or small those new tents are. They look pretty big, but it might still be limited on size in there. So,
Yeah.
time will tell. So it makes sense. Is that I kind of view that as a good thing because like we can just kind of if it's a busy night, we can just avoid that
I mean,
area
it's
instead of
good and
having a
it's
split.
bad because it's going to make that scare zone in New York crazier than it normally is.
Yeah.
If you think about it, because you're going to have like now, I'm not saying that any of these IPs are going to have the same line that The Last of Us did. I think The Last of Us was a special case, but if you put all of those IPs up front, that's where a lot of the general crowd's going to be. So it is going to make those the Midway and New York a little bit more, a little busier, I guess. There'll be a lot more people, and then the back of the park won't be as bad. But for guys like us who hang out more in the back of the park than anything else, it'll make other areas a little more open, which is nice. And plus, with the Shrek play with the DreamWorks area now open again, it's going to make that area less tight as well.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm curious about that little area. So I don't there's no prey warehouses, so I don't think we're gonna enter through there. But that's I guess a different discussion for a different day once we start trying to map out queue lines. Soundstage 24B, which is where Yeti was last year's codename Fudge, and that is Triplets of Terror. So that was a little bit of I think we already talked about this during a spec map, but that's just an interesting pick for me. I would have thought that'd be a Sprung 10 house or a Fast and Furious or something like that. Something smaller. I'm curious. I'm very curious to see what they do with the size because I know Universal's not going to put these houses somewhere just at random. So they're doing it for a reason. So they must have something in mind for this house. So I'm curious to see what exactly that is.
Texas was in a warehouse, not a warehouse, a soundstage, right? So
it was up where Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, I think it was a Jimmy Fallon queue.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what brings up with that one. Fast and Furious was codenamed Pie, and that is now linked to Sweets, which is where Chucky. I would have thought this would have been a soundstage house, just based off of the fact that it's like a factory, and I view a factory as this big, large, open kind of area. So interesting spot there for sure. Tent 1, that was codenamed Baklava, and that is now the museum where Darkest Deal was. So Sprung Tent 1. They've already museum and cinema are kind of locked down for sure. There's already been aerial pictures of the exterior facades of these houses out there.
Yeah.
So if you do want to find those and look at that and spoil yourself a little bit, you can do so on Twitter. People have posted them, so you can find them. But those Sprung tents for me, just they haven't missed in a long time. So I'm game with anything you want to put in there.
Right.
Sprung Tent 2 was codenamed Cobbler. That's where Oddfellows was last year. And that's where Slaughter Cinema 2 is going to be going, which is fun because that's where Slaughter Cinema 1 originally was back in the day. So kind of a homecoming of sorts. Sprung Tent 3, which is one of the new ones, was codenamed Donuts. And we're just kind of guessing, obviously, you can be that potential Universal Monsters, Scream Queens style house. That's the unannounced one.
Yeah.
So, Monsters has typically been in those parade warehouses. So, again, I don't know the exact size and height of these tents, but like I said, they wouldn't do something for nothing. So they must have some height and size in there. Yeah. So Sprung Tent 4 is codenamed Sunday, which is Goblin's Feast. And again, something that I view as, it's crazy that I feel like Goblin's Feast just got announced and like it's on the back burner. Like that was like that first thing after Slaughter. So that was the third house.
You almost forget that house even exists.
Yeah, that was the second house announced, and it was like, wow, I thought we were just talking about Goblin's Feast. It's definitely like hiding there in plain sight for me. It's like it's slowly intriguing me more and more. Just like I don't know why, but to me, that's like a big scenery style house in my mind, like a big landscapes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which like Dragons was last year, it had that scale to it.
Right.
But yeah, so that's where we assume our 10 houses are going to be placed this year. nothing's official. I don't think anything's really ever official until you start to see the queue lines and the stanchions out there. Obviously, I don't think they straight up say where stuff is going to be until like opening night, until like you're there and you're like walking around. I constantly have these dreams. I don't know. I'm probably weird, but like I constantly have these dreams of going to horror nights on like a night one and just like panic running around trying to find where's where and what's what. Like I had this one dream not long ago where I showed up at a horror nights and we didn't know the houses. This is an idea that we talked about before, but like that, just that like pure chaotic fun of like not knowing any houses and having to rush around to see what's at the event. And like you're looking at the signs that like point this way and that way, and you're like, oh, this sounds cool. Let's go over here. Like I know that like it sucks that it's such a big thing that they can never do that. But man, that would be so
like not announce anything until you actually get there. Yeah, that would be
so
cool.
fun for me. I would love it. I we'd hate it. We'd probably bitch and complain about it until we got there and we're like, okay, that was sick. Like that was really cool. But yeah, so that is what we have for tonight. Originally, we've been putting off this idea for a little bit. We're going to eventually do our top 5 houses we've ever been through. We'll get to that, but every time we go to do that, we get some sort of announcement, and I'd much rather talk about some concrete stuff, and we'll let that sit for another day. Plus
we
I want to make sure
that
all
without Jamie.
I want to make sure all 3 of us are on here on this episode. So, man, that was a lot. So express passes, multi-night passes, Insidious merch, and these potential house locations. Any final thoughts on anything we've discussed tonight, or where? I mean, we'll do a deeper dive on Insidious or the Insidious franchise at some point, maybe during our week-long HHN Podathon. If you are new to us this year and you weren't with us last year or the year before, welcome. Thank you for checking us out. But we do a HHN Podathon for the week leading up to Horror Nights. So we put out an episode every day from Friday to Friday. So 8 days, 8 episodes, I think it works out. Yeah, Friday, Saturday. Yeah. So that way that last
years
week,
off our lives.
Yeah, that last week is like super nice for you guys. It's super painful for us.
Stressful.
It is. We start juggling a lot. Yeah, and we'll
bad
start.
Stress and there's good stress, and this is one of those good stressors.
And thankfully, HHN helped us out this year by like announcing these houses way earlier.
Yeah,
because like the other times we're like scrambling the last couple of weeks to figure out what the hell is going on.
Right
now, we don't have to worry about the houses. We'll have those announced. So, before we sign off for the week, let's talk on some horror movies. Any horror movies that you've watched as of late? So I think I got a couple.
No.
Did I talk about A Quiet Place Day One?
You haven't
talked about that?
No.
Okay.
We haven't done an episode in a couple weeks. So
okay. All right. So I have a couple movies that I've made note of. So we saw A Quiet Place Day One in theaters. I really, really liked it. Obviously, we're not going to talk spoilers, but I did enjoy it. I feel like A Quiet Place is sort of like The Purge in the sense that this is a worldwide, or for The Purge it's more nationwide, but in Quiet Place it's a worldwide phenomenon. And if you just write a good story, you could place A Quiet Place anywhere. Like I'd love to see like A Quiet Place Tokyo or something like that. Like, and as long as it's a good story, you don't really mind that it's kind of the same story. You can do the same story, aliens invading, you can't talk, whatever. But if you can come up with unique stories to tell that are worth telling, you can make it work. So, I know you're not a fan of beating franchises to death, and I'm not either to an extent, but like
it's done
I see why you do it if you have a good story in front of you and you're like, damn, this is a solid script. Do I want to make a 4th Quiet Place? Not really, but I know that it's a good script and I know it's going to make money. So like, kind of have
studios are like, shit, do it.
Yeah, print it.
They don't care.
We'll put it out next year. Here you go. Here's your check.
So you just find the right director and the right actors, and if you can get people to sign on for it, then great.
Go shoot this thing in 3 months. I want a trailer by by Q4, and we're releasing this in Q1 next year. So I really did enjoy it. Definitely check it out. It's kind of a shame that this probably won't be a part of the house. It seems like the house is more 1 and 2 versus day
Probably,
1.
yeah, I would imagine.
And I get it; they're two completely different settings. You know, you have like that country style setting for 1 and 2 versus New York City for this one. So definitely go check it out. Not necessarily horror, but I watched Godzilla X Kong New Empire last night.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a stupid shut your brain off and enjoy kind of thing. CGI was kind of meh, but overall, I enjoyed it. I like those stupid monster movies. You don't have to have anything amazing to have it be semi
I've heard that
enjoyable.
one is actually genuinely pretty good. So
It's pretty good. The one that I really loved was Godzilla -1, which was
maybe that's the one I'm thinking of.
that's
Then.
probably the one that's more like critically acclaimed. It won an Oscar this year.
Yeah.
I think best international film, but that one is like genuinely a really good story. This one's just like, King Kong and Godzilla fight and then team up and then fight and then that's it really. And then lastly, I know I'm going through a lot, but I saw a lot this week. And it'll be cool because next time we're on, Jamie can give you her perspective on 2, if not 3 of these, because I think she fell asleep during Godzilla Kong. But we went and saw Maxine the other night. Again, no spoilers. I really enjoy it. I enjoy that trilogy. I like the fact that they're like the same story, but 3 very distinctly different styles, eras, and like undertones. With to start it off, you have X that's very like 70s camp slasher almost. And
Very
then you had
Grindhouse.
and then you had Pearl, which is like very Technicolor 50s, like almost Wizard of Oz. And then you have Maxine, which is like just like dirty 80s, like
Grime.
serial killer style. I really enjoyed it. I think the trilogy as a whole is really fun. I think I might like Maxine the most out of the 3.
Oh, wow. I have to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
And I'm not like, and I'll go see it again because I did enjoy it. I'd like to go. I'd like to watch Pearl and X again, and then see Maxine to like in order. It's not a trilogy, and none of those movies are ones that I'm like, oh god, I love these movies so much. They're all enjoyable to me, but there's just something about like 80s that I really just love watching movies of. So Maxine is definitely top of the list for me, I think. But did you get into anything this week at all?
I mean, it wasn't this week. It was a couple of weeks ago, but I watched A Quiet Place Part 2 finally. So I actually did get to see that, and I enjoyed it. I actually almost like it better than the first movie.
Yeah,
somewhat. But
I think I just rewatched some of it. I do have to. I'm gonna kind of do some more homework and watch it again more focused.
But those first 2 movies give me a lot of Stephen King vibe, so that's why I like them so much, because it feels like something Stephen King would have written.
Yeah, I like 2 a lot. I'm glad we're gonna have like bits of it sprinkled into the house this year. Plus, like anything with Cillian Murphy is like a home run.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Alrighty. Well, I think that about does it for us this week. We will be back next week. If we do not have an announcement, we'll get into that whole top 5 houses, and then if we have nothing else to talk about, maybe we'll up it. Maybe we'll do a top 10, just because we've been making you wait a little bit longer, and we got to fill the bye weeks with something. So we will be next week. Until next time, though, this is Nick,
and this is Seamus.
Happy multi-night tickets are out on sale day.
Yeah.
Cursed. It's got a death curse.
It's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare. And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.